Hey, this is Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Today I'm going to show you how to rebuild the top end on your Polaris RZR 900. This machine is in here because the top end is worn out. We need to replace our piston and rings. This is a lot of work if you don't need to do it yet, so you definitely want to make sure what's wrong with your machine before you start replacing parts. The valve train components can be replaced with the engine still in the frame, but the piston and rings, the engine will have to be removed from the frame, and you're going to have to do the bottom end at the same time. So how do you know if your top end's worn out? Well, it could just be a lot of miles and hours on it, could be burning oil, could be hard to start, or it could even have a poor idle. Now, all these symptoms could have other underlying causes, so you want to have a concrete way to check your engine. And to do that, you want to do a cylinder leak down test. We do have a separate video on how to do that, so if you're not sure what's going on yet, definitely check out that video and find out what you need to do. So if you do need to replace any of your engine components, both bottom or top end, we'll show you how to on this 2014 Polaris 4-seat 900. To do this job, we need some tools to help us remove the clutches. So we've got our clutch puller, we've got a sheave spreader, this is our clutch cover removal tool, and then we also have our clutch holding tool. Now, we're also going to be using an engine hoist and an engine stand. So this chain is for the hoist, and then this adapter plate is for our engine stand. We're also going to need rubber gloves, safety glasses, rags, and other than that, you're going to want to have some common hand tools, and you want to stay organized throughout the process. So we have some Ziploc bags, a Sharpie to label things, and then we also have masking tape. You can label things with that as well, and the Sharpie. And then you also need an oil pan, and we're going to use a jack to raise the rear of the machine. Now, anytime you're doing an engine rebuild, you're going to need some coolant. We have an oil change kit from Tusk. It includes the crush washer and oil filter, and then it's really just common service items, so the spark plugs, the air filter, and then we also have some contact cleaner that's always handy while you're going through the process. And then if you need any special tools or the engine parts, check out our website. We have a lot of different options on there. Now we'll go ahead and remove the front driver's seat and then the two rear passenger seats. Next, we'll disconnect the negative battery terminal. The next thing we'll do is drain the oil. Next, we'll clean this drain plug up and we'll install a new sealing washer on it. This sealing washer came from our Tusk oil change kit. We'll also wipe down the sealing surface for our drain plug. Now we can remove the engine service panel. This is located where the rear seats are covering up. Now we need to gain access to our engine. So to do that, I'm going to remove this cover. We'll remove both side plastics and this cargo bed. Now we're back behind where the seats normally go on this RZR, and we're going to remove this intake hose that goes into our clutch. To do that, we'll loosen the hose clamp and remove the hose. Next, we'll remove the crankcase breather hose. At this point, we need to disconnect our brake lights. We also have turn signals installed on our machine. So we'll disconnect those and cut any zip ties coming up to them so we can fully remove the cargo bed. The next thing we'll do is remove the air box. To do that, we'll loosen the 2 hose clamps coming from our throttle body assemblies, and then we'll remove the 2 screws holding the air box into place. We also need to remove the rubber hose from the bottom of the air box. Now we'll pull back on the air box and we can remove it from the vehicle. So with the covers all removed from our engine, you can see this thing is pretty dirty. So what we're going to do, we're going to plug up any holes and then we're going to pressure wash everything, and we'll make sure everything's as clean as possible before we remove the engine from the frame. Our next step is to remove our clutches. To do that, we'll raise the vehicle, remove the left rear wheel and lower shock mount bolt. Next, we'll remove the 8 bolts holding our clutch cover on. Now we can remove the mounting bolts for both of our clutches. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the threads of this clutch puller. If you don't have one of these pullers, they're available on our website. So this rear shock is out of our way right here, but just so you guys can see the process better, I'm actually going to remove the whole thing. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this clutch holding tool right here. We'll just tighten this up until this clutch is actually going to pop off. Just like that. And I know it sounds like it broke it, but that's what it's supposed to do. So now I'm going to take the tool out and we'll remove the primary clutch. We'll remove the drive belt, and then we'll remove the secondary clutch. Right here we've got a cover. It's covering up some wiring and some hoses. We'll remove the 4 push tabs in that and remove the cover. Loosen the hose clamp for this air duct and remove it. Next, we'll remove the 7 bolts holding this inner clutch cover on and remove it. So what we need to do now is start disconnecting our electrical connectors, and up at this IAC valve, we'll also remove these 2 hoses that are going down to the throttle bodies. And we'll remove the connector at the back of the valve. Remove the connector at the throttle body. Remove the connector for your coolant temp sensor. Disconnect the crankshaft position sensor. Disconnect the fuel injection harness leads. We've got these harnesses held onto this cross member with some zip ties. These are actually going to pull out of there. Next, we'll go ahead and remove this bolt right here on our IAC valve. And this piece is holding our throttle cable in place. Next, we'll disconnect the lines going to the fuel rail. Next, we'll remove these spark plug wires. Next, we'll remove the battery cables going to the starter. Loosen the hose clamps on the intake boots. We'll remove the throttle body. We aren't removing the throttle cable. We're just going to set the throttle body assembly to the side. Next, we'll remove the exhaust header. To do that, we'll start by removing these 2 springs where it connects to the muffler. Now to remove the header, we need to remove this heat shield but since we're up here in the front, we do need to disconnect this stator connection. Now I'm gonna go ahead and remove these bolts for the heat shield. So this one right here, this actually has some adhesive on it. So if you remove it, you're gonna have to get some double stick tape. Now we'll go ahead and remove the header. Next, we'll remove the heat shield on the side right here. It's just one bolt on top. Now it's time to remove this crossbar section. So to do that, I'm going to disconnect this clip on our ignition coil. So we have all these hoses right here. These are vent hoses. We're going to pull this out of our frame right there. And then we're going to remove both of these crossbars. They each have 4 bolts in them. Next, we'll place a drain pan under the lower radiator hose. We're going to disconnect that hose and also place a funnel directly beneath it. Once you do that, you can remove your hood, loosen the radiator cap. As soon as you loosen that and remove it, coolant will drain out into the pan and it should go right into that funnel. After you've done that, you can loosen the upper radiator hose and remove it. Our next step is to remove our motor mounts, but before we remove these, we want to make sure we have our engine hoist hooked up. On this engine, we're going to use the exhaust flange bolts and their mounting locations. All right, now we're ready to remove the motor mounts. So to do that, I'm going to take out these 2 bolts on this left side. All right, now we've got these 4 bolts right here. We're going to loosen these 2 side bolts and then remove the 2 bolts in the back. So those bolts were the ones holding the engine to the transmission. Now we'll go to the front of the engine and remove the 4 remaining bolts. With all of our engine mounting bolts removed, we can now use our engine hoist to remove the engine from the frame. And that's it for the engine removal for the RZR 900. If you need any parts or accessories for your machine, be sure to check out our website. We have a lot of different options on there. We also offer free shipping on orders over $75. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where you're going to find part 2 of the engine rebuilding series for the RZR 900. And if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Thanks for watching.